Dear Agustin, dear colleagues and friends, I would have preferred to be physically with you, but it's still a great pleasure to speak at this Innovation Summit, especially to tackle a dilemma that all of us have to face. Should we adopt new technological innovations now or wait for them to mature further? None of us obviously has a crystal ball. We cannot know for sure which innovations will flourish or when, nor what impact they will have on the economy and financial sector. Let me give a famous example. The electric car was first invented in the 19th century. We should not forget that. Only to be overtaken by gasoline cars, but these days, the electric vehicle is back in the spotlight again. Of course, as central banks, we are not innovating for innovation's sake. And innovation has a cost. The closer an innovation stands to the current technological frontier, the higher its cost. However, as central banks, we must definitely keep up with developments if we are to remain benchmark players. And this will be my first point. In addition to the question of when is the right time, this raises a more specific challenge for us: how to overcome the apparent contradiction, oxymoron, between innovation and stability. I will, in a second point, focus on a new high priority area, artificial intelligence, already alluded to by Agustin. So, about the oxymoron, central banks and supervisors are directly interested in innovation. And it's not only to keep pace with their private partners, but also to channel innovation, including private innovation, towards the common good. Taking advantage of new technologies involves 3A, active monitoring to identify worthwhile innovation, analysis to detect the potential risk and vulnerabilities, and yes, anticipation of future threats. Let me take the example of quantum computing. The technology may not be mature yet, but we have to prepare now for the consequences it will have on cryptographic methods. This is why last June, the Banque de France launched and successfully conducted an experiment with a private partner to develop post-quantum algorithms. Coming back to the oxymoron, innovation means movement, change, and ultimately a certain degree of risk-taking. Central bank's mission, on the other side, is about monetary and financial stability. Winston Churchill once said, "Without tradition, art is a flock of sheep without a shepherd. But without innovation, art is a corpse." This is admittedly a strong way of putting it, but I believe there is a large part of truth in this. Innovation without stability will lack trust, and stability without innovation would result in stasis. And historically, central banks have not been only followers or adopters, but themselves innovators. For the greater public good, think of the Eurosystem infrastructures in payment. Let me focus on money. Money, which is our core business and which is and will remain a public-private partnership that has to evolve. The way we make central bank money available has to be geared to the 21st century to ensure that central banks maintains its fundamental role. And let me stress that this role is not to be the dominant means of payment, but to be a stability anchor for the financial system. This is why I believe that sooner or later we will need a CBDC, central bank digital currency, for wholesale as well as for retail purposes. As you know, we are preparing accordingly at the ECB and the Banque de France, and commercial banks need not to be fearful. But let me broaden the view about the future of payments and follow what Agustin said some minutes ago. The landscape of payments is evolving rapidly with numerous new elements. Let me take an image. Some of these elements are solid, almost set in stone, like the G20 objectives on improving cross-border payments or regulating cryptos. Other elements are more liquid, albeit very promising. We don't know completely yet the interconnection of successful fast payment systems like UPI in India, PIX in Brazil, and possibly TIPS in Europe. The tokenization of assets. And let me insist there that European banks shouldn't lag behind in the domain of tokenizing deposits. And yes, a third possible liquid element, CBDC. One could even argue, to follow my image, that there are still very important but gaseous elements, such as AR, which I will come back to. What we need now is not to choose among these various elements or technologies such or such, but to articulate these elements as part of a global picture or vision. We must at once follow innovation with humility and openness, but also, I believe, lead innovation and reflect on it in a holistic manner. Here, the idea of a unified ledger proposed in the latest BIS annual report and just developed by Agustin may prove more than just a promising technology, a rallying concept. Accordingly, the BIS recently launched Agora, and the Banque de France is very happy to represent there the Eurosystem with other central banks and a large group of private financial firms. A necessary step towards such a global infrastructure could be to build regional unified ledgers, one of which would be European. Let me now turn to my second point about artificial intelligence. It has gained widespread public attention thanks to exponential leaps. These are not small steps, obviously, over the last few years, especially generative AI. For sure, let us be honest, there is still more talk than walk, and the AI hype could be followed by some disappointment. But that said, AI is a typical example of an innovation where central banks would be mistaken to wait until they have gained absolute certainty. And absolute certainty we have not today. Earlier this year, the IMF ventured a preliminary estimate, almost 40% of jobs around the world and up to 60% in developed economies may be affected, with AI acting either as a substitute to or as a complement to labor. However, according to a recent report coordinated in France by Philippe Aghion, only 5% of jobs are at risk of being fully replaced. This distinction between substitute or complement is also stressed in a IMF paper co-authored by Daron Acemoglu. One of our key challenges is to make sure that the human AI complements humans instead of replacing them. The pioneering European AI Act is designed specifically to foster trustworthy AI. And we should be careful not to repeat the mistakes of the past. One of them would be that an excessive concentration of AI players would be detrimental on many levels. This danger may increase further if too few AI models lead to a loss in information diversity and to misalignment between human cognition and AI algorithms. Here again, for central banks, learning by doing is of the essence. Today, we at the Banque de France have already deployed AI in several prototypes and different areas. We will step up this activity this year with the support of our innovation lab and scale up our use of AI. May I perhaps focus to end with on some principles, three principles of a doctrine that we are reflecting on and which can hopefully also serve our central banks. Three imperatives. First, understand and master. We need to ensure that we thoroughly understand the models and their outputs in order to maintain full control over activities, avoid the black box syndrome. Having state-of-the-art domestic AR platforms available on the market would be very beneficial in this regard, given the sensitivity of some of the data we handle. Therefore, it's quite high on my wish list. In Europe, we have the expertise and resources needed to compete with the major current incumbents, as recently stressed by Christine Lagarde. This would benefit all countries around the world. The more AR providers we have, the less risky our use of that AR will be. Diversification is an effective risk management tool. Second principle, buy-in. In line with the idea that AI should complement human labor and expertise, gradualism is also needed in the way we integrate AI. This will help to ensure employee buy-in. And this challenge should not be underestimated. It might be the most difficult. We have to find the right kind of human-machine interaction. In practice, this means training, feedback, and continuous improvement, all good reasons to tackle the learning curve as early as possible. Last but not least, third, cooperate. We need to move ahead together by enhancing cooperation, and not only among ourselves, between central banks and financial supervisors, but with other authorities as well, both domestically and across borders in different fields. Let me quote some domains: competition, cyber resilience, fundamental and personal rights, climate transition. Can I share a personal conviction? If Keynes and the other founding fathers of the post-war international order were to start over today, 2024 in Basel, they would probably, according to me, create a WDO, World Digital Organization, to cooperate, to stimulate, and to regulate. In the absence of such a WDO, we will need to be creative. This brings me to my conclusion. To answer today's question in an even more straightforward way, yes, central banks must rapidly start adopting new technological innovations, including AI, in a rational, clear-headed, and controlled way. And as we speak about innovation, let me quote an ancient philosopher of the Roman Empire, because this is not a completely new story. Seneca rightly said, "It's not because things are difficult that we dare not venture. It's because we dare not venture that they are difficult. I wish you the best possible summit and thank you for your attention.